late 1400s, Christopher Columbus set sail across the Atlantic Ocean in search of lucrative trade routes in Asia. Instead, encountered the New World, a continent filled with lands unknown to Europeans. Today, space has become that modern day of exploration. Good morning, my name is Sharanya Vijay Kumar.
My name is Zainab Bizan.
My name is Sophia Diopta.
My name is Rodrigo Baez.
And this is Planetary Contamination, Is It Worth the Risk?
Our research question is it ethical to risk contaminating other planets in pursuit of human exploration of space? Our argument is that it is unethical to risk contaminating other planets in pursuit of human exploration of space.
Most people would initially believe that it's okay to risk contamination of different planets for human exploration because it would not harm us in any way. This is unfortunately incorrect, which is why it is important to know what is life and how it can harm humanity. So first of all living organisms must have at least 20 types of amino acids within them. Example given here is the amoeba proteus. It is a type of organism that has 20 types of amino acids within its system. This proves that it is a living organism. So conclusion, all living, it could have 21, 22, or even 20 amino acids within it, but anything less than 20 would not be considered one. Second of all, living beings must also have the factors of being naturally made, have the ability to process information, the ability to understand the purpose of life, and the ability to die. Also, according to NASA, when dealing with contaminants from different planets, researchers and scientists have to be extremely careful with dealing with these and sanitization of them due to the possibility of spreading forward and backwards contamination. It is also proven by NASA that these type of contaminants can affect all living beings, which is why it is unethical and why we shouldn't contaminate planets.
We expand off of life and all that's living in it. The consequences in our ecosystem will not only harm us, but will harm those surrounding us. Our research can put those in danger and impossible distinction. Contamination can cause hospital ecosystems to be fragile and unworthy of exploration. According to this image, there are various of potentially habitable exoplanets in which can be seen as newly found and currently fragile due to newly researched. Potential habitable planets be seen as fragile and unable to be researched upon. Astronomy quotes we not only think that there are only a few hospital planets in which can be researched upon without harming or doing anything to the ecosystem living within it. This takes us to the matter of protection. From day to day, we see different scenarios in which people must put their own health and research before others. From a cop's life, they must see safety before anything else. An astronaut must also consider their own health and safety before others. Thirst Robert wrote within a medical journal speaking on the considerable data that there is on astronauts' health and safety. We're unable to see the unreasonable data that there is that concerns astronauts' health. We cannot assure other ecosystem safety as we cannot assure our own.
There are also economic impacts in planetary contamination. Rising number of missions due to excessive funding have identified to risk further contamination. In an article by Athenico Stenis, planetary scientists and astrobiologists have identified rising number of missions from both public and private actors, increasing cumulative risk of contamination, suggesting that with a greater funding of space missions are becoming more aggressive and more ambitious, suggesting that contamination is more likely. Also showing how with a lighter funding, not only will there be money being saved, there will also be less risk of contamination. Another reason is how contamination could invalidate experiments wasting research funding. Also in an article by Athenico Stenis, she states how planetary protection is a set of measures to ensure the protection of space exploration, of space investigation, of space exploration, suggesting how strict contamination control is required to optimize our fund to make sure we don't lose any type of data we get from this important mission. So it's heavily funded. Counter argument. Although it is very nice to protect planets from contamination and our research, due to all expenses preventing contamination, space investments have not been helping the GDP. According to an article by Luisa Corralo, economists that specialize in macroeconomics have illustrated how U.S. space investments in the 1970s approximately increased the GDP by approximately 2.2%, while in the 2000s it's only increased the GDP by approximately 0.9%, proving that returns are shrinking, making heavily funded space mission less justified economically. Here, as you can see in the image I have provided, right about from the 1970s to 1980s, the GDP was at around 2.2 to 2.5, while here in the start of the 2000s, it was right about above a 3, but then it plummeted to the negatives, averaging at about approximately a 0.9. And another reason is how protecting our data is very expensive in space. According to an article by Athena Koustanis, the 1985 Mars Sample Recovery and Quarantine Study evaluated many options of entry to handle samples. Cheapest one with highest contamination risk ranging from about 5.1 million to 9.8 million, while more elaborate protective options range from hundreds of millions to 9.1 billion. Proving that economically it would be better to possibly have samples risk contamination than spend so much money protecting them from contamination.
So what is our solution to all of this? Simply put, COSPAR, the Committee on Space Research. According to Appendix B, Origins of Planetary Protection by Jericho Locke, COSPAR was created due to increasing space contamination in the U.S. when Project Westford was launched in 1961. This released hundreds and millions of copper needles into medium Earth orbit. COSPAR's role after this was to set guidelines and policies for spacefaring nations to adhere to, including ones on planetary contamination. So what can we do with COSPAR? COSPAR can host yearly workshops that work to collaborate and discuss research conducted by member states to enforce planetary protection policies. If we continue this, we can efficiently decide the best action to take to combat planetary contamination with up-to-date research, tech, and data for future missions. Overall, an international approach is the best way to combat the ethics of planetary contamination and make sure everything is done safely and efficiently. Thank you.